Rain drummed on the roof of the police station as Amanda Wilson pushed open the heavy door and stepped inside. Her blonde hair, usually perfectly styled, now hung in damp strands, and there was worry in her eyes. She fidgeted nervously with the strap of the expensive camera hanging around her neck. A professional habit she couldn't get rid of, even in stressful situations. The officer on duty looked at the drenched girl with polite interest. "What can I do for you? Miss, my mother is missing. Haven't heard from her for 2 days now." Amanda's voice trembled slightly. That's not like her at all. 20 minutes later, she was already sitting across from Detective John Parker, a man of 48 with shrewd gray eyes and barely noticeable gray on his temples. He listened patiently, making notes in his notebook. Mary Wilson, 53 years old, didn't come home the night before last. He repeated what Amanda had said. "When did you last see her?" 2 days ago this morning, she said. She had some kind of meeting this evening, usually. Mom always says where she's going, but this time she was very evasive. Have you tried calling her hundreds of times? The phone is either turned off or out of range. Amanda bit her lip. I've checked with all her friends, co-workers. No one knows anything. Parker looked at the girl carefully. And your father, he died when I was 15. Heart attack. She lowered her eyes. It's just been me and my mom. Ever since, after filling out all the necessary paperwork, Parker decided to visit the Wilson home immediately. The modern 2-story cottage in an upscale neighborhood of the city spoke of financial prosperity. Inside, everything was spotless. No signs of forced entry or struggle. Your mother's room? The detective asked, looking around the spacious living room. Amanda led him up to the second floor. Mary's bedroom looked neat. The bed made clothes hanging in the closet in perfect order. On the bedside table was a picture of a smiling Amanda in her graduation gown. A book with a bookmark next to it. Did she bring a travel bag with her? Inquired Parker, looking around the closet. I don't think so. All her suitcases are in place. The detective methodically checked the dresser drawers. Passport? Amanda pulled out the top drawer of the bedside table. Here, it's right here. She wouldn't have left without it. Parker nodded thoughtfully as he continued his inspection in the bathroom. All the toiletries in place, toothbrush and a cup. People planning to disappear usually took things like that. Does she have her cell phone with her? Yes, but it's not answering. Amanda rubbed her hands together nervously. Detective, I'm really worried. It's totally unlike Mom to disappear without saying anything. Has she had any problems lately? Financial difficulties? Health problems? Maybe a new relationship? Amanda faltered. No, nothing like that financially. We're financially secure. Dad left good insurance and investments. There's nothing wrong with her health, but as for a relationship, she hasn't seriously dated anyone since Dad died. Parker noticed the fleeting uncertainty in her eyes, but decided not to insist just yet. I need to talk to your mother's closest friends. Does she have a friend she's particularly close to? Susan Taylor? They've been friends since high school. I've already called her. She doesn't know anything either, but she'd be happy to talk to you. Susan Taylor lived 15 minutes away, in a cozy house with a lush garden. A 55-year-old woman with a short haircut and a concerned look met the detective on the doorstep. I haven't found a place to be since Amanda called. She led them into a living room littered with framed photographs. Many of them showed Mary young, laughing with little Amanda in her arms. This doesn't look like Mary at all. When was the last time you spoke to her? Asked Parker, declining the offered tea 2 days ago. In the afternoon, she phoned me, sounding anxious. Amanda pitched forward. You didn't say anything about it before. Susan shrugged guiltily. I didn't want to worry you, dear. Mary asked me not to tell you. She called. Said she had some important business to take care of. What kind of business? Frowned Parker. She didn't elaborate. But she's been acting really weird the last 3 weeks, canceling our traditional meetings, often being brooding. Distracted Mom didn't tell me anything. Amanda looked surprised and hurt at the same time. Do you think, Miss Taylor, that Mary might have had a romantic relationship that she didn't tell you about? Asked Parker. Susan hesitated, casting a quick glance at Amanda. I can't say for sure, but I've sometimes had that suspicion. She canceled our plans several times at the last minute, and when I asked directly, she'd go out of her way to answer. It wasn't like Mary. We never had secrets from each other. Parker decided it was time to talk to Amanda's boyfriend. According to her, James Foster was a frequent visitor to their home, and if Mary had indeed been acting unusual lately, he might have noticed something. The office of the law firm where James worked was located in a glass skyscraper. Downtown, a young man of 26 in an expensive suit met them in a conference room overlooking the city, tall with an accommodating smile and penetrating brown eyes. He looked worried, Detective. I want to help in any way I can. Mary is a remarkable woman, and I'm just as worried about her as Amanda is. When was the last time you saw Miss Wilson? Began Parker. 3 days ago. I stopped by their house after work. As I often do, we had dinner together, then I left about 9 o'clock at night. Notice anything unusual about her behavior? James hesitated, rubbing his chin. She seemed a little tense, but nothing out of the ordinary. Mary has always been reserved with me. Where were you the evening of her disappearance at work? Late then, home getting ready for an important case. Can anyone confirm your whereabouts? Not after 8 p.m. I was alone in my apartment. Parker noted the flimsiness of the alibi, but that wasn't the only thing that interested him. There was a sense of tension between Amanda and James that hadn't been there before. She avoided looking at him, and he seemed to be choosing every word with care. After talking to James, the detective decided to check Mary's cell phone. Luckily, Amanda knew the password her daughter's birthday mom always said. I could use her phone in an emergency. She explained when they returned to the Wilson house. While going through the messages, Parker came across correspondence with Contact J. The messages had been deleted, but cloud storage had kept a backup. What he saw made him frown. Miss Wilson, do you know who Jay is on your mother's phone? Amanda shook her head, but something resembling fear flashed in her eyes. Parker turned the screen, showing her the messages. The girl's face turned pale among the photos, and messages was unequivocal evidence of a romantic relationship between Mary and the man she called Jay. Some of the photos showed the profile of a man who looked strikingly like James Foster. That's impossible, Amanda whispered, recoiling before Parker could say anything. His cell phone rang after listening to the person on the line. He nodded grimly. Amanda, I need you to come with me. A car similar to your mother's was found in an abandoned house outside of town. A woman's body was found inside the house. Horror froze in Amanda's eyes. What abandoned house, according to the officer? It's an old cottage north of town that once belonged to the Wilson family. Amanda turned even paler. Grandpa and Grandma's summer home. We spent every summer there while I was little, but my mom sold it years ago. The drive to the abandoned house took about 40 minutes. The place was secluded, an old Victorian cottage, half hidden by sprawling trees. Police cars with blinkers broke the serenity of the rural landscape. Mary's silver sedan was parked next to the house. The driver's seat door was ajar. Wait here? Parker gestured for Amanda to stop at the police fence and headed toward the officers working the scene. He returned a few minutes later with a grim expression on his face. I'm so sorry, Amanda. It's your mother. A note was found next to the body. The girl swayed, and the detective had to support her. Tears rolled down her face, but she didn't make a sound, just stared at the house where her mother's body lay with an expression Parker couldn't decipher. A mixture of grief, shock, and something else he couldn't define. She killed herself. Amanda finally squeezed out. We're not jumping to conclusions, Parker replied evasively. There will be a full investigation while the forensics team worked inside the house. Parker studied the suicide note found next to the body. The handwriting was neat, almost too perfect. I can't live with this burden any longer. I'm sorry for everything. Something wasn't adding up if Mary had really decided to leave her life. Why had she chosen this place, and what was this burden? She mentioned. Parker glanced at Amanda, who was sitting in the police car wrapped in a blanket. He had many more questions to ask her. He also needed to talk to James Foster again. The Gray Morgue. Building cast an inescapable wistfulness. Detective Parker lifted the collar of his coat, shielding himself from the biting wind, and walked through the automatic doors. The smell of disinfectants hit his nose. Dr. Warren, a forensic scientist of 20 years, experience a man of few words and pedantry, was already waiting for him in the prosecutor's office. "Morning, John." The doctor nodded, pointing to the body covered with a sheet. "The case is an interesting one. What have we got?" Mary Wilson, 53 years old at first glance, no apparent cause of death, no signs of violence, wounds, or hemorrhages. But the doctor paused, picking up a sheet of test results. The toxicology study revealed the presence of tetrodotoxin. Tetrad of what? Parker frowned. Tetrodotoxin, a very rare neurotoxin found in some marine animals, especially fugu fish. The lethal dose is about 2 milligrams. Are you saying she was poisoned by the fish? Not exactly. The toxin was administered in its pure form, right here. The doctor gently turned Mary's arm, showing an almost invisible injection mark on her forearm. It blocks nerve impulses, causes paralysis, and eventually respiratory arrest. Death is quick but agonizing. The victim remains conscious, but unable to move or breathe. Parker felt a chill run down his spine, so it's definitely a homicide. Then absolutely to inject yourself with a dose like that on your own, and then put the syringe down carefully is impossible. Besides, where would the average person get tetrodotoxin? It's not something they sell at the drugstore around the corner leaving the morgue. The detective immediately dialed a colleague's number. "Mark, I need an expert toxicologist specializing in marine poisons. It's urgent." 2 hours later, sitting in Parker's office, was Dr. Lin, a petite woman of Asian descent with a piercing gaze. "Tetrodotoxin is an extremely rare and dangerous poison," she explained. "In Japan, only specially licensed chefs are allowed to cook fugu fish, and even so, cases of poisoning occur every year. But in your case, we're talking about pure toxin. Where can you get it? That's where the difficulty lies. It can only be found in pure form in research labs studying marine biology or neurotoxins, university labs, pharmaceutical companies, research institutes." Parker tapped his pencil thoughtfully on the table. "So we need someone with access to such a lab." "Thank you, Dr. Lin." After the toxicologist left, Parker returned to the case file. The suicide note had been sent for forensic analysis, but something about it was immediately jarring to him. He decided to take another look at Mary's house. The house greeted him with silence. Amanda, devastated by grief, was staying with a friend, using the search warrant. Parker methodically examined every room, every drawer in Mary's bedroom behind a stack of perfectly ironed sweaters. He found a leather diary sitting on the edge of the bed. The detective began leafing through the pages, written in neat handwriting. Entries from the past 2 months especially caught his attention. "I can't believe I found him after all these years. My heart is breaking. What am I going to tell Amanda?" Parker continued reading. Mary wrote of unbearable choices, sins of the past, and impossible coincidence. The initials JF and the phrase, "how to tell them the truth," were mentioned several times, turning the page. The detective froze. An old envelope with the logo of an adoption agency fell out of the diary. Inside were documents from 26 years ago. The birth certificate of a boy given up for adoption. Mother is Mary Wilson, age 18. Father unspecified. Parker exhaled slowly. The details were beginning to come together into a coherent picture. The phone interrupted his train of thought. The handwriting expert was calling John. I have the results on the suicide note. It's definitely a forgery. The handwriting mimics Mary Wilson's style, but it's unnaturally perfect. Someone tried very hard, but made the classic mistake of two perfect letters. No natural variations back at the station. Parker laid out the evidence. In front of him, a body found in an abandoned house. A rare poison. A fake suicide note. A secret affair with his daughter's boyfriend. Adoption papers. The dates matched the boy Mary had given up, should be 26 years old now. Exactly the same age as James Foster. Parker decided to have another talk with Susan Taylor. Mary's friend met him wearily, her eyes red with tears. "Detective, have you found who did this?" "It's not suicide, is it?" "No, not suicide." "Susan, I need to ask you a direct question. Did you know that Mary had a child that she gave up for adoption?" Susan turned pale, her hands trembling. "How did she tell you?" "No, I found the paperwork. That child is now 26 years old." Susan sank into a chair, covering her face with her hands. "I swore I wouldn't tell anyone. It happened in high school. Mary was a brilliant student. College ahead, a scholarship, and then this pregnancy. Her parents were furious, insisting on an abortion. But Mary refused. She gave birth to a boy and put him up for adoption. A closed adoption. She didn't know who took him where he grew up. And the baby's father, some guy from college. He dumped her as soon as he found out she was pregnant." Parker leaned closer. "Susan, what's changed lately? Why has Mary suddenly started acting strange?" The woman sighed. "About a month ago. She called me in a complete panic, said she'd found him, her son. I didn't understand how it happened. She was too excited, something about a private detective and a chance encounter." "Did she give a name?" "No, just said she couldn't believe such a coincidence, that her son is close, that he'd met Amanda. Before, I thought maybe it was one of Amanda's friends." Parker hesitated. "Do you know if Mary changed her will recently?" Susan looked surprised. "She mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, said she wanted to make sure her children would be provided for. I was still surprised at the time. She only has Amanda after all." Parker returned to the station and went straight to the office, where a file from Mary's notary was waiting for him. Indeed, 2 weeks ago, she had amended the will. The bulk of the estate still went to Amanda, but there was a new beneficiary. One James Foster, who was to receive 20% of the inheritance and a small summer house on the lake. The next step was to talk to James. This time, Parker invited him to the station. The young lawyer looked tense, though he tried to maintain a professional equanimity. "Mr. Foster, tell me about your relationship with Mary Wilson. I've already told you she was my girlfriend's mother. We were on good terms." Parker laid the printouts of messages from Mary's cell phone on the table. "These messages tell a different story. You were in an intimate relationship with your girlfriend's mother." James shuddered, his confidence shaken. "You don't understand. Explain it to me." The young man ran a hand through his hair nervously. "It's more complicated than it seems. Yes, there was a connection between us, but it started on her initiative. Go on. About 2 months ago, Mary took me out to lunch when Amanda was on a business trip. It was normal at first, but then she started asking weird questions about my childhood. My parents, where I grew up, I figured it was just the usual mother's interest in her daughter's boyfriend. Parker listened in silence. Then she started seeking meetings with me alone, called texted. I refused at first, but she was persistent. Said she had an important reason, that I needed to know something vital. Eventually, I agreed to meet, and what happened? Things got out of hand. She was in a very emotional state, talked in riddles, hints. Then she started to seducing me. I should have said no, I know, but it happened." "Did you continue the relationship after that?" James lowered his eyes. "Yes, she threatened to tell Amanda if I stopped seeing her. Said she had some important information about me that she would reveal when the time was right." "What kind of information?" "I don't know. She never said directly hinted at some kind of connection between us, about fate, about righting past wrongs. I thought she was. A little off, to be honest. Parker tapped his pen on the desk. Mary changed her will 2 weeks ago. Did you know about it? James looked genuinely surprised. No, what does it have to do with me? She included you among the heirs. The young man's face expressed genuine amazement. What? Why would she do that? What do you think, Mr. Foster? Or perhaps the more correct question would be, where did you spend the early years of your life? James frowned. I was adopted as an infant, if that's what you mean. But what does that matter very much? Parker pulled out a copy of the birth certificate. Did you ever wonder who your birth mother was as a teenager? Yes, but it's a closed adoption. There's no way to get the information. What if I told you that Mary Wilson gave birth to a boy 26 years ago and gave him up for adoption? James's face turned pale. He opened and closed his mouth several times, unable to find the words that's impossible. You're saying that I dated my birth mother. Oh my God. Amanda, your half-sister. Parker finished, it seems. Mary somehow found out about it, probably hired a private investigator when she realized who you were. She tried to get close to you to tell you the truth. But why? Why this intimate connection? It's insane. That's a question only Mary could answer. Perhaps it was her twisted way of getting closer to the son she lost? Or an attempt to destroy your relationship with Amanda without revealing the truth about the kinship? We'll never know for sure. James looked utterly crushed. She was going to tell us Amanda and me, judging by her journal. Yes, she's been agonizing over this decision. Detective James's voice shook. You don't think I could have killed her? I'm a lawyer. I've never even heard of this tetrado. What's his name? I don't have access to labs or poisons. Parker looked at the young man carefully. His reaction seemed genuine. His shock genuine. Where were you the night of the murder? And this time, Mr. Foster. I want to hear the truth. I was with Mary. James admitted quietly. She called, said we needed to talk urgently, that things had gone too far. I met her at the cafe around 8 o'clock at night. She was very agitated, said she couldn't live a lie anymore, that she had to tell Amanda the truth. What happened? Then we had a fight. I was afraid of the scandal, the embarrassment, afraid of losing Amanda. We broke up around 9. She said she was going home and would tell Amanda everything tomorrow, with or without my help, but she didn't go home. Apparently not. I don't know where she went after we talked. I swear she was alive and well. The last time I saw her, Parker leaned back in his chair, mulling over the information he had received. The whole picture was slowly coming together. But one detail still kept him on edge. Mr. Foster, did you ever mention your adoption in front of Amanda? Of course she knew about it from the beginning of our relationship, and the details, age, circumstances. Yes, we discussed it. I told her I was adopted as an infant, that I never knew my biological parents. Parker tapped his pen on the table, his thoughts working at an incredible speed. When did you meet Amanda? About a year ago at a charity auction. She was hired as a photographer, and my firm was a sponsor of the event. And Mary? About a month after our relationship began, Amanda introduced us at a family dinner. The last piece of the puzzle fell into place. Parker suddenly realized what he'd been missing all this time. He glanced at his watch. It was getting late, but it couldn't wait. He needed to talk to Amanda right away. He let James go, warning him not to leave town, and dialed Amanda's number. The girl's voice sounded muffled, as if she had just woken up. Amanda, I need to ask you some questions. It can't wait until morning. Is something wrong? Did you find my mom's killer? Not over the phone? Can I come to your place now? The address she gave belonged to the friend she was staying with. 20 minutes later, Parker was already parking outside a small townhouse on a quiet street. Amanda opened the door, looking grief-stricken. But the detective noticed something else in her eyes. Weariness, almost fear. Come on in, Detective Lisa's gone to her parents' house, so we can talk in peace in the living room. Parker sat down across from Amanda. Miss Wilson, I'm afraid I have some news that may shock you. The morning began for Detective Parker with a cup of strong coffee and a stack of papers on his desk after his shocking conversation with James. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something important. He was methodically going through the case notes when his assistant entered the office with a new folder. The information you requested on Amanda Wilson. She placed the documents in front of him. I think you should take a look at this. Parker opened the folder. Amanda's professional bio included a list of her recent projects. One caught his eye immediately: a series of photographs for a scientific journal taken at the Oceanographic Institute 3 months ago. A special project about marine toxins and their research call. The Institute. Parker raised his eyes to his assistant. I need to know if Amanda Wilson had access to the labs while she was working on the project. While he waited for information, the detective returned to the crime scene photos, the abandoned house, Mary's car, the suicide note. Now that he knew about the adoption, many of the details took on new meaning. But there were still questions. A phone call interrupted his musings. Detective Parker, this is Dr. Crane from the Oceanographic Institute. You were asking about Amanda Wilson. Yes, doctor. She was working on a photography project at your institute. Quite right. An exceptionally talented photographer. Her pictures of the microscopic structures of the toxins are stunning. Tell me, did she have access to the lab where the toxin samples are stored, specifically the tetrodotoxin? A pause on the other end of the wire. Yes, she had a temporary pass. We allowed her to move freely around the institute so she could capture the entire research process. But the toxin samples are stored in special safes that only staff with proper clearance have access to. Have there been any security breaches, missing samples again? The pause longer this time. Actually, yes, about 2 months ago, we discovered that one of the tetrodotoxin samples had been replaced with saline. We did an internal investigation, but we didn't find anything out. The security cameras didn't pick up anything suspicious. Parker squeezed the tube, who had access to the lab on the day of the alleged theft. Let me see, 4 research assistants, 2 lab technicians, and yes, Amanda Wilson was there that day too. She was photographing the process of extracting the toxin from the tissue of the fugu fish. Thank you, Dr. Crane. Please send me all the surveillance footage from that day and a list of everyone who entered the lab. Hanging up the phone, Parker leaned back in his chair. The first piece of the puzzle fell into place. Amanda had access to the lab where the tetrodotoxin was stored. That was the poison Mary had been poisoned with. But that wasn't enough to convict her. The next step was a detailed analysis of Amanda's cell phone, which she had volunteered at the beginning of the investigation. Tech sent a full report, including deleted messages and photos. Parker began going through Amanda's correspondence with her mother over the past months. The usual messages, nothing suspicious. Then he began examining the call logs and discovered a strange pattern. 3 weeks before Mary's disappearance, Amanda had abruptly stopped calling her mother and greatly reduced her messages. At the same time, her correspondence with James had also changed, becoming more tense. With long pauses between messages in the notes on Amanda's phone, he found a deleted entry from the same period. Saw them together today. I can't believe it. My own mother. They think I don't know anything. I'll keep quiet. By the communications history clearly showed that Amanda knew about her mother and boyfriend's affair at least 3 weeks before Mary's disappearance, but chose to hide that knowledge from both of them. Another lie in her testimony. But the real find was waiting in Amanda's cell phone. Geodata location analysis showed that on the night of the murder, her phone was near the Wilsons' old house. According to the data, she arrived there 2 hours before Mary's estimated time of death, and did not leave the location until an hour after the time of death determined by the experts. This completely contradicted her testimony that she was home all evening. The geolocation tags were automatically recorded by a jogging app that Amanda had forgotten to turn off. Parker quickly dialed the crime lab's number. "I need a full report on Mary Wilson's car, everything you have, prints, fibers, everything." An hour later, the report was in front of him. Forensics found something really important in the trunk of Mary's car. They found microscopic traces of a high chlorine cleaner, the type used to destroy biological evidence even more. Interesting was a tiny shard of glass with liquid residue found under the trunk mat. Laboratory analysis showed that it was part of a broken ampule containing traces of neurotoxin. It was a serious piece of evidence that could not be explained by Amanda's usual presence in her mother's car. Parker now knew for sure that the poison had been transported in Mary's car, which meant that someone had used the car to commit and conceal the crime. The picture was becoming clearer and clearer. Parker glanced at his watch. It was almost noon. He dialed Amanda's number. "Miss Wilson, we need to meet at the precinct." "Now, is something wrong, Detective? I have new questions about your mother's case. It's urgent. I'll be there in an hour." Parker hung up the phone and called the text. "Prepare interview room 1, full recording." Amanda entered the police station exactly 1 hour later, pale but outwardly calm. Dressed in all black, the perfect image of a grieving daughter. Parker met her in the lobby and escorted her to the interview room. "Have a seat." "Miss Wilson." She sat down, placing her hands gently on the table. "Did you learn something new, Detective? You look tense." "Yes, I have some new information I'd like to share with you." Parker opened the folder. "You worked on a photography project at the Oceanographic Institute 3 months ago." It wasn't a question, but Amanda nodded. "Yes, for a science magazine, a series on marine toxins. They were doing amazing things, turning poisons into drugs, and you had access to the labs. Of course, I photographed the entire research process." Parker motioned a document toward her. "During that period, a sample of tetrodotoxin went missing from the lab. The poison your mother was poisoned with." The expression on Amanda's face didn't change. "That's a terrible coincidence, Detective. But what does it have to do with me? Let's talk about your mother and James Foster. When did you find out about their relationship?" A momentary confusion in his eyes, quickly hidden. "The day she disappeared, I found messages on her phone, remember?" Parker shook his head and placed a print out of her correspondence with James on the table. "You knew about this at least 3 weeks before she died. Why did you lie?" Amanda turned even paler. "I can explain. Please, I've been keeping tabs on her. I wanted to know where she was going, who she was seeing. I followed her to her old house that night, but then I left. I swear. What did you leave in your car was in the shop. That day I called a cab. There's no record of a cab, but there are your fingerprints on the steering wheel of your mother's car." Parker leaned closer. "Amanda, stop lying. You were there the night of the murder. You were driving your mother's car, and you had access to the poison she was poisoned with." Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand, then explain it to me. You don't know what she did, how she betrayed me, how she took James away from me. I loved him, and she at her age. It's disgusting." "We found your mother's diary, as well as adoption papers," Parker said, watching Amanda's reaction carefully. "Adoption? What do you mean?" Parker slowly placed a copy of the birth certificate in front of her. "Your mother gave birth to a boy when she was 18. She gave him up for adoption. This boy must be 26 years old now." Amanda frowned, looking at the document. "I didn't know anything about that. But what does that have to do with James? Is 26 years old. He was adopted at birth. Your mother somehow found out that James was her biological son." Amanda froze, her eyes widened with shock. "What? What did you say?" "James Foster is your half-brother, Amanda, your mother's son, given up for adoption 26 years ago." Amanda's face contorted. No, that's impossible. You're lying. We have proof. Mary recently found out about it. That's why she changed her will to include James. That's why she's been acting so strangely lately, But she slept with him, whispered Amanda, her voice shaking. How could she, if she knew? We think that their relationship started before she knew the truth, and when she found out, she tried to find a way to end it without traumatizing you both with the truth. There are entries in her journal about it, about how she agonized, not knowing what to do. Amanda covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. Oh, God! Oh, my God! I didn't know. I thought. What did you think, Amanda? She raised tear-filled eyes to him. I thought she just wanted to take him away from me, just like she always took away everything I loved. It always annoyed her that I was happy. She was jealous of me, of my youth when James came along. He was the first man to look at me instead of her. And then you found out about their connection. Amanda clenched her fists, fury flashing in her eyes. I found pictures on her phone messages. She called him my boy. It was vile. She stole him from me. I was furious. What happened that night? Amanda asked Parker softly. Her gaze clouded over, as if she'd mentally traveled back to that night. I followed her to the old house. We used to go there a lot when I was little. Didn't know. It still existed, thought. She was going to meet James there, but she was alone writing something in her diary. And what did you do? I stormed inside. We were yelling at each other. I accused her of betraying me. She tried to explain something. Said it wasn't what I thought it was, that there were things I didn't know, but I didn't want to listen. Amanda lowered her eyes. I had a syringe of poison. I took it from the lab when I was working on a project. I don't know why. I guess somewhere in the back of my mind, I was already planning it then. When she turned her back on me, her voice trailed off. You injected her with neurotoxin. Parker finished. Amanda nodded, tears streaming down her face. I didn't think it would work so quickly. She didn't even have time to realize what had happened. Just fell over. Her eyes were open. But she couldn't move, couldn't speak. And then I panicked. Wrote a note imitating her handwriting. I thought everyone would believe it was suicide. I left the note next to the body, took her car and drove home, reported her missing. The next day she looked up at the detective, and in her eyes she read the realization of the horror of what she had done. I killed my mother because she slept with my boyfriend, who turned out to be my brother. It's a nightmare. If only I had listened to her, if I had given her a chance to explain herself. She was trying to find a way to stop your relationship with James because she knew the truth about your parentage. Parker said it wasn't just an affair. She was trying, albeit clumsily, to prevent incest between her children. Amanda made a sound like a suppressed laugh through her tears. How ironic. I killed her for trying to protect me. Parker looked at her with sympathy, mixed with professional detachment. Amanda Wilson, you're under arrest for the murder of Mary Wilson. You have the right to remain silent. As he read out the rights, Amanda sat motionless, as if all life had gone out of her. 2 hours later, Parker sat at his desk, finishing his report. He looked at the picture of Mary attached to the file, a beautiful woman with intelligent eyes. The tragedy that had begun 26 years ago with an unwanted pregnancy had finally come to an end, in the worst possible way. There was a knock at the door. It was James Foster, pale with circles under his eyes. I heard you arrested her, he said, in lieu of a greeting. Parker nodded. She confessed, Detective. I need to know, is what the lawyer told me true, that Mary was my birth mother? Yes, we found the adoption papers. She gave you away when she was 18. James slumped heavily in his chair. Jesus, I didn't know, I swear. I didn't know when we were in a relationship, did she? I'm not sure. I think she started to suspect something after our first intimacy. She started asking weird questions about my past, about my parents, but she didn't say anything directly. Judging by her journal, She found out the truth a few weeks ago and has been trying to find a way to end things. James covered his face with his hands. What a nightmare, it all. Makes terrible sense now, her strange behavior. The hints of some kind of connection between us and Amanda. Did she know we were brother and sister? No, she only found out today, during the interrogation. Oh my God, what a monstrous situation. Mary is dead. Amanda is in jail, and I don't even know who I am anymore. Parker remained silent, realizing there were no words to ease this pain. You know what the ironic thing is? Detective finally uttered James. If Amanda had just given Mary a chance to explain herself, if only she'd listened to her, none of this would have happened. Parker didn't answer anything. He'd seen many tragedies in his career born out of misunderstanding, jealousy, anger, but this one was particularly bitter. "I'll need your official statement," he said finally. James nodded and stood up at the door. He paused. "What do you think will happen to Amanda? That's for the courts to decide, given the premeditation, the planning. But there are extenuating circumstances. Should I visit her?" Parker hesitated. "That's for you to decide for yourself. But I'd give her time if I were you. She has to realize not only her guilt, but that she has lost her mother and her brother at the same time." When James left, Parker turned back to the report. The story had come to an end, but its repercussions would be felt for a long time to come. Family secrets buried in the past have a way of resurfacing at the worst possible moment. And sometimes the cost of the truth is prohibitive. He closed the Mary Wilson file outside the window. The rain intensified, pounding on the roof of the police station, just as it had the day it had started.